I want to be in your perfect will for my life. If you can use me. And I was just a young girl, 20 years of age in Moonville, South Carolina, if you can believe that.
Many people know Joni Lamb as a respected Christian broadcaster, author, and the co-founder of a global television network. For decades, she inspired millions with messages of faith, hope, and family values. But behind the public image, questions have continued to surface about struggles, secrets, and challenges that remained hidden from view. Now, new attention is being drawn to a story many never expected. So, was there more to Joni Lamb's life than people realized? And what exactly was she hiding for nearly 30 years that has everyone talking today? Joni Lamb's early years. Joni Lamb was born Joni Trammell on July 19, 1960, in Colleyville, Texas. She was raised in Greenville, South Carolina, in a deeply religious family that attended Tremont Avenue Church of God. For her family, faith was not just something practiced on Sundays, it was a part of everyday life and guided everything they did. It was at that church that Joni's future began to take shape. One day, a young evangelist from Georgia came to lead a revival service. His name was Marcus Lamb. At just 20 years old, Marcus was confident, charismatic, and had a powerful presence that captured people's attention. Joni noticed him, and Marcus noticed her. After the service, they started talking and continued to stay in touch over the following weeks and months. Their relationship grew, and they were married on August 6, 1982. Joni was 21, and Marcus was 20. In the beginning, they were simply young traveling evangelists. They had no television network, large audience, or business empire. They traveled across the country, preaching wherever churches invited them, often facing financial struggles along the way. Less than a year after they married, Marcus experienced a moment in Israel that he would later describe as life-changing. He said that God spoke to him and instructed him to build a television station. Both Marcus and Joni believed in this calling and committed themselves to making it happen. According to some accounts, money was so tight that Marcus found a discarded broadcast transmitter in a dumpster and used it to help launch the station. In 1985, that transmitter became the foundation of WMCF-TV 45 in Montgomery, Alabama, a station known as 45 Alive. Marcus was 27 years old, and Joni was 24. It became the first Christian television station in Alabama. Around this time, their son Jonathan was born. Their daughter Rachel was born in 1990. That same year, the Lambs sold WMCF-TV to the Trinity Broadcasting Network and moved to Dallas, Texas. There, they purchased a closed local television station and began building their vision once again from the ground up. Their first live broadcast featured T.D. Jakes' New Year's service at the Potter's House in 1992. That same year, their youngest child, Rebecca, was born. Then, on New Year's Day in 1998, the Lambs officially launched the next major chapter of their ministry and television network. When was the Daystar network commissioned? What principle was it based on? Let's find out. Daystar Network Growth. The Daystar television network officially launched with a name inspired by 2 Peter 1:19, a Bible verse that speaks about the Daystar rising in the hearts of believers. For Marcus and Joni Lamb, this was far more than a catchy name or a marketing idea. It reflected the purpose they believed God had given them, to spread hope, faith, and the message of Christianity to people around the world. The name itself served as a mission statement, rooted in Scripture, and meant to guide everything the network would become. In its early years, there was every reason to believe that mission was genuine. What followed was nothing short of remarkable. The small ministry that had once struggled to survive began growing at an astonishing pace. What started with limited resources soon transformed into one of the most influential Christian broadcasting networks in the world. By 2003, Daystar had reached a level of success that few could have imagined. The ministry moved into a massive 90,000 square foot headquarters equipped with 17 state-of-the-art television studios. The facility represented years of hard work, sacrifice, and determination. It was a visible sign of how far the network had come from its humble beginnings. At the same time, Daystar's programming lineup expanded rapidly. The network attracted some of the biggest and most recognizable figures in American Christianity. Viewers could watch messages from pastors and teachers, such as those from Houston, whose congregation was quickly becoming one of the largest churches in the world. Other well-known Christian leaders also became part of the network's growing schedule. Programs further strengthened Daystar's reach and popularity. Marcus Lamb also used his strong connection to Israel to open new doors for the network. In 2006, he secured a broadcasting license in the country, making Daystar the first Christian television network of its kind to broadcast there. It was a major achievement that expanded the ministry's influence and gave it a unique place in Christian media. As the years passed, Daystar's signal spread across major cable and satellite systems around the globe. The network eventually reached viewers in more than 200 countries and territories and claimed access to over 2 billion households worldwide. What had once been a small vision powered by a salvaged television transmitter had grown into an international media empire with enormous reach and influence. From the outside, it seemed like the complete fulfillment of every dream and promise that had inspired the network's creation. The growth was extraordinary. The audience was massive, and the ministry appeared stronger than ever. Yet beneath the surface, while the success story continued to unfold, problems were beginning to emerge. Hidden behind the impressive buildings, global expansion, and growing influence, small cracks were starting to appear in the foundation. Some of the earliest and most troubling cracks involved money and finances, issues that would later raise serious questions about the organization and its leadership. Why was Daystar investigated? Could it be a financial misappropriation? Let's find out. Daystar investigation. NPR carried out a major investigation into Daystar's finances after Marcus Lamb told a live audience in Australia that the network had given away $30 million in charitable donations over 5 years. When NPR reviewed 6 years of Daystar's own financial records, it found a very different picture. The records showed about $9.7 million in charitable donations, around 5% of the money received from donors, not the $30 million Marcus had publicly claimed. The investigation also uncovered several other spending decisions that raised questions. More than $572,000 in donor funds had been used to sponsor a Christian NASCAR driver. Daystar had also provided a $2.3 million loan to a former personal assistant and close friend of Marcus Lamb to help launch a church. In addition, the network spent nearly $100,000 buying large quantities of Joni Lamb's autobiography from retail stores. This is a strategy sometimes used in the publishing world to boost sales numbers and help a book reach bestseller lists. Daystar later explained that the books were given to donors as gifts. Because the IRS classified Daystar as a church rather than a traditional nonprofit organization, the network was exempt from taxes and was not required to file the same public financial reports that most charities must provide. For years, critics of televangelism had questioned the Lamb family's visible wealth. Marcus drove a Maserati. The family owned several properties. Their children attended costly private schools. They also traveled on a private jet, with many trips publicly described as ministry-related. Despite these concerns, many supporters continued to overlook them. Daystar kept expanding, attracting more viewers and donations, while the lifestyle behind the scenes appeared to grow as well. According to former employees, the atmosphere inside Daystar was often very different from the uplifting image viewers saw on television. Lisa Anderson, who served as Joni Lamb's executive assistant from 2007 to 2011, later described a work culture where she was expected to be available at all times, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including holidays. One Thanksgiving stands out in her memory. While sitting down to dinner with her family, she received a phone call from Joni Lamb. Joni asked her to drive to a bakery, pick up a cake, and deliver it to the Lamb family home. Lisa did as she was told. She arrived at the house, walked past the Lamb family enjoying their own Thanksgiving meal, placed the cake on the counter, and then quietly returned home to her interrupted dinner. Former art director Morgan Ferris shared similar stories. He claimed that when Rachel Lamb arrived as a college student, she often expected the entire marketing department to stop working on existing projects and focus on her personal requests instead. Ferris also said that when employees complained about Rachel's behavior, Joni would dismiss those concerns and suggest that the workers were simply being judgmental. Then came 2010, a year that would bring a controversy so significant that it would change Daystar's public image forever. So, what happened that year? Does it have to do with litigation? Let's take a closer look. Daystar scandal and the hidden lawsuits. Marcus Lamb sat in front of his own cameras and admitted to having an affair. He and Joni described it as honesty and bravery. They said they chose to speak publicly because someone was trying to blackmail them. According to them, 3 people were demanding $7.5 million to keep quiet. Marcus and Joni said they would not use God's money to pay blackmailers. Joni, in tears, talked about betrayal and forgiveness. The studio audience felt emotional, and many viewers sent messages of support. The couple later appeared on national TV, including the Dr. Phil show, to present their story as a lesson about faith overcoming temptation. It was widely seen as a strong example of crisis management in Christian media. However, the real situation behind the confession was more complicated than what was shown on TV. The people described as blackmailers were not criminals. They were 3 former Daystar employees who had filed a civil lawsuit. Reports from NBCDFW and the Dallas Observer, along with court documents, said the affair was not a short mistake. Instead, it lasted about 7 years and involved a senior Daystar executive. CBS News also reported an email in which Marcus wrote that he looked forward to making her his future wife. The lawsuit also claimed that company money, including donor funds, was used during the relationship. It further alleged that the woman received large payments after leaving Daystar in exchange for keeping silent. These were donations from viewers who believed they were supporting religious work. Marcus and Joni publicly called the women extortionists and criticized them in front of their audience. Eventually, those lawsuits were dropped, and their audience forgave them. The network continued operating. About 2 months later, another lawsuit was filed. Jennifer Falcon sued in federal court, claiming that Bill Trammell, Joni Lamb's father and a Daystar administrator, created a hostile workplace through repeated sexual harassment, according to NBCDFW and the Christian Post. The lawsuit said he demanded prolonged hugs during quiet time, placed his hands in inappropriate positions during those moments, and at times told her to sit on his lap. Falcon reportedly saw him as a father figure. Marcus and Joni denied all the accusations and called them shocking and untrue. That case was also eventually dismissed, and the network continued its operations. The women's allegations remain part of the official record, regardless of the outcome, and they are included because they form part of the broader pattern described in the case. What's really happening within the family? Is it something that could be resolved? Let's find out. A troubling family allegation. In July 2020, Daystar received a $3.9 million loan from the Federal Paycheck Protection Program. which was meant to help businesses keep paying their workers during the COVID-19 pandemic. Just 2 weeks later, the network bought a 1997 Gulfstream G5 private jet. When Inside Edition questioned Marcus Lamb about the timing, he said the jet was paid for using money from an investment and from selling their older aircraft, not from the government loan. After the story became public, Daystar gave the $3.9 million back. Whether this explanation was fully correct or not, many people noticed the strange timing. A Christian TV network receiving emergency pandemic funds and then quickly buying a luxury private jet. The family later used that same jet to travel to Fort Lauderdale and Naples, Florida, where they spent about 8 days golfing and on vacation, sharing the trip happily on social media. There is nothing wrong with taking a holiday. Still, the situation looked unusual because the network was also telling its viewers that the pandemic was a spiritual battle and encouraging them to trust faith over fear. Because of that message, their relaxed vacation posts seemed more controversial to some observers. During that same summer of 2020, a serious and troubling issue first came to light. A male family member, referred to later by Jonathan and Susie as Pete, told Susie at a family gathering that their 4-year-old daughter had once walked in on him in the bathroom and saw him partially undressed. Susie found this strange, but at first believed it might have been an innocent accident. By December 2020, the situation became much more serious. Their daughter was able to tell Susie directly that she had been harmed by a man. She was too young to give a name, but she described what the person looked like. At first, Susie thought it might have been someone from the child's school. She contacted the school, but confirmed that no male staff members had access to her daughter. The school was ruled out. Susie then reported what her daughter said to Joni. Instead of calling the police, Joni told Susie to bring the child to her. She then spoke privately with the little girl. After that meeting, Susie later said her daughter stopped talking about the issue completely. Jonathan and Susie still reported it to the police, but since the child would not repeat her statement, the investigation was closed. About 8 months later, in August 2021, the extended Lamb family was on vacation together in a beach house in Miramar Beach, Florida. One day, Jonathan and Susie's 5-year-old daughter asked to go swimming. Susie told her to go upstairs and get her swimsuit. Pete, who was in the room, immediately got up and followed the child toward the stairs. Susie noticed a sudden change in his behavior and expression. She became alarmed and told Jonathan to go upstairs instead of going herself, believing he would be taken more seriously if something was wrong. Jonathan went upstairs and found Pete in a bedroom with their daughter, who was completely undressed. Pete appeared nervous and began apologizing. Jonathan later said it felt like catching someone in the act. Both couples were then brought together. Marcus and Joni tried to explain Pete's behavior, saying he simply cared for the child and wanted to be around her. When Susie questioned why a grown man was alone in a bedroom with a naked child, Joni suggested the child may have undressed herself. Marcus added that he understood what it felt like to be falsely accused. The group was then told to forgive each other, pray together, and Jonathan and Susie were asked to apologize to Pete. A week later, Marcus told Jonathan privately that Pete had already been cleared by a forensic police investigation. That claim was not true. How did they become famous? And why the sudden decline? Let's find out. The rise and fall of a Christian media family. On November 30th, 2021, Marcus Lamb died at age 64 from complications related to COVID-19. After his death, Jonathan and Susie never had the chance to confront him about what they believed was a lie. That conversation will never take place. Soon after Marcus passed away, Joni began a relationship with Doug Weiss, a Christian counselor who often appeared on Daystar. Doug reportedly filed for divorce from his wife of more than 30 years, just 58 days after Marcus's death. All 3 of Joni's children opposed the relationship. A trusted counselor even gave Joni a written warning about Weiss, describing him as someone who could not be trusted. Doug Weiss's ex-wife also reportedly wanted to save their marriage. Still, Joni continued the relationship and married Doug Weiss on June 10, 2023. None of her children attended the wedding. After that marriage, many conflicts became public. There was a recorded 90-minute meeting where Pastor Jimmy Evans told Jonathan Lamb that his mother was like a voice of God to him. Susie was reportedly fired after refusing to read a viewer comment that supported the marriage. Jonathan was removed from his vice president role, placed on a performance improvement plan, monitored by a private investigator hired by the network, and even tracked with a GPS device in a company vehicle. He was later fired on November 16, 2024, with the dismissal letter delivered by a security guard wearing a bulletproof vest. Over 30 major partners, including well-known Christian speakers, left the network in 2024 and 2025 as the controversy grew. The family, once seen publicly as a strong example of Christian family values, became deeply divided. At the same time, Joni Lamb's health was quietly getting worse. She had breast cancer that had spread to her bones, but this was not made public while she was alive. In the weeks before her death, she made one known private attempt to repair relationships. According to a family friend, also confirmed by Jonathan and Susie in an interview, Joni met a board member named Tom Callender about 3 weeks before she died. She was in pain, but still tried to present herself well. During that meeting, she reportedly said that if Jonathan reached out, he should be given back control of Daystar. This came after years of conflict, firings, lawsuits, agreements, and surveillance. It reflected a final effort at reconciliation. Jonathan was not with her when she died. He was not called to the hospital and was not told her condition was critical. He learned of her death about 10 minutes before it was announced publicly on social media, and he was informed by a corporate lawyer rather than his family. So, what do you think about Joni Lamb's lifestyle over the past 3 decades? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.